We are at one of baseball's gems, AT&T Park in San Francisco for ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell. The defending World Series champion San Francisco Giants trying to sweep their arch rivals here tonight, the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's 11 come from behind wins and counting for the Giants, including Friday, when Buster Posey's 9th inning home run powered San Francisco to a win in the first game of the series. And then again last night, the knockout punch in the 10th from Guillermo Quiroz, and the Giants win their 5th game in a row. Tonight, the Dodgers send rookie Hyun-Jin Ryu to the mound to try to stop their slide. The Giants go for the sweep with Matt Cain on the mound looking for his first win of the season. Oral, John, and Buster join me for first pitch when we come back on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live boss. And in part by One A Day Men's 50-plus Healthy Advantage. A couple of great nights for the Giants and their fans. Back-to-back walk-off wins, back-to-back home runs to win the ball games over their dreaded rivals from the South, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And now the Giants have won 5 in a row. They're in first place in the National League West, and yes, they're trying to win the World Series for the 3rd time in 4 seasons. Hi, everybody, and welcome to San Francisco. I'm Dan Schulman, along with John Kruk and Oral Hershiser. Last Sunday, we saw the game's best 3-4 combination in Miguel Cabrera and Prince Fielder. We're going to see another dynamite 3-4 combo here tonight in Pablo Sandoval and Buster Posey.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch both guys hit because they do it in different ways. Pablo Sandoval, free swinger. If it moves forward, he's going to hack at it. So when he's up, Don't go to your seat or don't go to the refrigerator. Don't go to the bathroom because you're going to miss his at bat. But when Buster Posey comes up to hit, you can take your time. He's a cerebral hitter. He thinks about his at-bats, goes through his at-bats, goes through his repertoire, the whole thing. And when he puts them on play, it's one of the prettiest swings in baseball.
And for the Dodgers, of course, it's been a struggle so far. They spent all that money, but they're not piling up the wins like they had hoped. A ton of injuries as well, and that means tonight's starter, Hyunjin Ryu, is really becoming a very important piece of this Dodger puzzle.
A big piece, and there were a lot of questions around baseball when they signed Ryu. This is a 26-year-old veteran. He started playing professional ball when he was 19 over in Korea, but he has brought 4 high-quality Major League pitches. He has outstanding stuff, great poise, great athleticism, and today he needs another quality outing. But I'll tell you what, he had one rough outing, and it was his very first outing of here in the big leagues. It was when he pitched against these Giants, and he was not very good in that game.
More issues, though, for the Dodgers again in their lineup heading into tonight's game. For the details, down to Buster.
Dan, Adrian Gonzalez was not in the starting lineup on Friday, on Saturday, and he's not in the starting lineup tonight because of what the Dodgers believe to be a strained trapezius. He's going to have an MRI. Now, Adrian took batting practice tonight. He said he feels okay doing that. It's the other things, the fielding, the running, that's more of a problem. He could pinch hit tonight, Dan.
Hi, Buster. Thank you. So they will make do without Adrian Gonzalez. Of course, Hanley Ramirez is injured again. One guy they do have in the lineup, and a guy who's doing pretty well lately, is Carl Crawford, trying to ignite the Dodger offense, which overall is the second worst offense in the National League coming into the game tonight. First pitch swinging. Crawford hits one up the middle, ranging to his left, spinning and firing to get him. Brandon Crawford for out number 1.
Well, Dan, he started to add offense to his repertoire this year, but this was something he could always do. You remember last year in the postseason, all the great plays he made. Now, this is not a slow runner, Carl Crawford, one of the fastest getting down the line. Crawford made that look easy, had him by over a step.
Now look at that footwork from Brandon Crawford as he gets him. Crawford does not get a lot of attention when you talk about some of the good young shortstops around baseball, but ask the Giants folks. They'll tell you what he means to them. Here's Nick Punto. Getting a start at second base. Yet another injured Dodger, Mark Ellis, has missed about a week with a quad injury and might be headed for the disabled list if he doesn't find his way back into the lineup in the next day or two. Broken to bat fly ball to center. Right at Andres Torres, 2 down. Take a look now at the Dodgers starting lineup tonight. Brought to you by Taco Bell. Crawford and Punto you've already seen. Kemp and Ethier hitting 3rd and 4th. Boy, do they need more offense out of Matt Kemp. The power just has not returned. The Dodgers do a good job getting on base, but they have done a very poor job of driving in runs, of moving guys over and driving them in. And this is the guy, Crucky, who's supposed to be driving them in.
Yeah, and he's off to a slow start. He had the shoulder surgery last year, and you have to think that in the back of his mind, he's afraid to really turn it loose and try to turn on balls because he's afraid of what could happen to his shoulder.
Kemp sends one towards the left field corner on the first pitch. It's a fair ball. Skips up into the seats, and Kemp, it sounded like he might have broken his bat on that swing, but he's got himself a ground rule double.
I'm sure Matt Cain probably thought, I've only thrown 3 pitches so far. Kemp's probably taken. Throws him a fastball, looks like right down the middle. And you see the swing. He's bringing his hands in, but you see what he got through it a little quicker. He actually even hit that ball off the end of the bat. You see there, just a short little stride by Matt Kemp. And that, to me, is a swing that if you're Don Mattingly, you've got to be happy that he was out in front of one finally.
So Cain has thrown 4 pitches and has gotten 2 outs and given up a double. Kemp hitting 3rd because Adrian Gonzalez is out again tonight. That means Andre Ethier moves up to the cleanup spot. And Ethier will take outside ball 1. Matt Cain, Oral, is winless through 6 starts this season with an ERA over 6.
He's really struggled against right-handed hitters, and he's also struggled giving up the long ball, having some big innings. Home runs against 9 already this year.
What do you see? What do the Giants see when they talk about Cain's struggles this year?
Well, he's been very inconsistent with his delivery. His arm slot has been a little bit low. They say he's perfectly healthy and feeling good. He has really turned into a guy who has very good control, but he's lost some command. And so he's throwing strikes. He's getting just as many strikeouts, but he's hitting the center of the plate a little bit more than the edges.
has not enjoyed a lot of success against Andre Ethier. Ethier is 27 for 60, a 450 career average against Matt Cain.
There's some guys that just kind of get you. They pick up your release point, and maybe make all of your bad pitches against them, and they make all of their good swings against you.
You heard the chant of "Beat LA" moments ago. Now it's changed to "Let's Go Giants." Always a great atmosphere here at AT&T Park. And Ethier hits the ball high in the air to right field. Back on the track with room is Hunter Pence. And the inning is over. The Dodgers will leave the Kent double aboard. The Giants coming up when we come back. Giants player sees every day here at AT&T Park when he leaves the clubhouse on his way to the field. 25 guys, one common goal: win today. And they play as a unit, as a team, grinding out victories about as well as any team in baseball over the last 3 years. Let's take a look now at the starting lineup for the Giants tonight, brought to you by Taco Bell. Pablo Sandoval, as good of a bad ball hitter as there is in baseball. Letter high and above, in the dirt, a foot outside. There is no safe place to pitch Pablo Sandoval. And Buster Posey with his first major league walk-off hit, and it was a home run on Friday night in the bottom of the 9th inning to give the Giants a win. And Guillermo Quiroz hit a home run in the 10th inning to give the Giants a win last night. Here is Hyun Jin Ryu, the rookie from South Korea, making his 7th start of the season. And he misses a little bit inside the ball one to Andres Torres.
He's a rookie here in the United States, but he pitched for 7 years professionally over in Korea. He started when he was 19 years old over there as a pro.
Sharply hit it into left field, a base hit for Torres, who is filling in for the injured Angel Pagan, who has a slight hamstring injury, and we're supposed to be hoping to get him back in a day or two. And Torres coming off from the bench, starting tonight for the Giants, or for Los Gigantes as they are tonight. This is Cinco de Mayo after all. And the leadoff man is aboard here in the bottom of the first.
And this is the blueprint for the Giants. Get the leadoff hitter on Scudero, one of the best second hitters in baseball, along with Martin Prado when he hits there. Hitting the ball the other way. Let's see if he can first to third. Torres right here.
Bouncing ball left side. Gordon's got it. Long throw, not in time. Infield hits Scudero. So first and second, nobody out for the Panda. And they love him here.
Don't expect a bunt here, but do expect a swing early in the count.
Sandoval, 5th in the National League in batting, 4th in the National League in RBIs.
Both teams are up there hacking, aren't they? And Fits right into Pablo's game plan.
First pitch swinging.
Shocker.
One of the strangest numbers you'll see, and granted it's not a huge sample size because it's just based on this year. Sandoval has a better batting average this year on pitches out of the strike zone than he does on pitches in the strike zone. So, Oral, what do you do with this guy?
It's very, very hard to pitch to him. You've got to make quality pitches and see maybe where he's swinging the bat well. If he's hitting the low pitch, maybe go up. If he's hitting the high one, go low. But
little flare. Drops in a base hit. And just like that, they're loaded with nobody out for Buster Posey.
Well, this is a backbreaker for the Dodgers. They lost an extra inning game last night. They scored some runs. They thought they could have got a W. But now here they get bases loaded. They got a chance to get swept today. They're mentally going to have to be tough. Sandoval just putting the ball in play. Really gets jammed on this cut fastball inside. You see he gets really in on him down by the pine tar. But he just happens to find a hole.
So Ryu is in an early jam. An infield hit, a little flare, loading the bases after the solid base hit by Torres. And here's the reigning MVP, Buster Posey. Inside, ball one, says Fielding Culbert, the home plate umpire.
Ryu in his first start against the Giants, first start in the big leagues, faced Posey and the Giants and gave up 10 hits and a walk that day, 3 runs in 6 1/3 innings. So he's going over a mental barrier right now.
Just outside. So Ryu, and you can see the hesitation by both Ryu and A.J. Ellis, the catcher. Missed by an inch or two inside, missed by an inch or two outside. And they're trying to figure out where Fielding Culbert's boundaries are on that strike zone.
And this is what Posey does. He makes you come to the strike zone. Now it's 2-0. What's Ryu do?
Ground ball to third. Coming home for one, and that's all they'll get. Fielder's choice as they cut down the runner at the plate.
That was a very veteran pitch right there. Bases loaded, no outs, first inning, facing the MVP and throw a 2-0 changeup. Get him out in front and get that ground ball to third. Watch this pitch coming from back from a changeup and throws it right back in the same exact place that he didn't get the call. You see the spin on that ball fading away from Posey, gets him out front, makes him one-handed, and they get an out. Now he's got a chance to get out of this inning. Nice play by Cruz, throwing the accurate throw home.
The batter is Hunter Pence. First pitch swinging, ground ball in the hole to second one, and that's it. Fielder's choice and an RBI for Pence as Scudero comes in to score the game's first run.
I'll tell you, John, the way that both lineups are swinging at the first or second pitch, you think they got a plane to catch.
I think some guys here do, but yeah, again, we use around the plate, and if you're going to be around the plate, why wait? You know he can strike guys out. He has like you said in the open, he has a repertoire of pitches, so why would you wait?
2 down, runners on the corners, a run in for Francisco Peguero. The left fielder just called up yesterday from AAA, where he was hitting over 400 in 16 games. Sent foul up into the seats on the right field side. 0-2 on Peguero.
He must have been looking for something else.
Something a little bit slower.
Yeah, change up. Setting on change up, hit the fastball.
Yeah. And the Giants, the first, they are tied, entered play today, tied with Colorado atop the National League West. The Giants with a record of 18-12. The Dodgers come in just 13-16 as Peguero lays off. Colorado lost today 8-3 to Tampa Bay. So for the moment, the Giants a half game up in the division. Dropping, caught down the line by Andre Ethier to end the inning as the Giants get one. A closer, more personal look at Andre Ethier when we come back out of this break.
Brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes.
I'm Andre Ethier, and this is my position. It's unbelievable. You realize the sacrifices your parents or the things they'll do to make you better. And definitely my dad, one day, out of the blue, I guess he had been practicing, and I might have been struggling against left-handers. He says, I'm going to throw to you left-handed today. And I'm asking him, what are you doing? Sure enough, he did it well enough to throw strikes, and I appreciate that. It's kind of crazy that your parents telling you the stories of you growing up to now you experiencing them yourself. My little guy dragging me out there. Hopefully, I got the big leaguer coming up for myself.
Great story by Ethier with his dad learning how to throw left-handed just to give Andre a better shot against left-handed pitching as he's a kid growing up. Ethier for the Dodgers trailing the Giants 1-0 as we come back for the top of the second here at AT&T Park. A.J. Ellis, Juan Uribe, and Luis Cruz will be the batters this inning against right-hander Matt Cain. The Giants have been a team known for the great starting pitching in recent years, but that hasn't exactly been the case so far this year, other than Madison Bumgarner. And of course, Matt Cain would be the most likely candidate to join Bumgarner atop that rotation. Remember, we saw him on opening day against the Dodgers. He pitched very well.
Yeah, he has not pitched very well after that outing. He's going the distance as far as getting innings in the 6th to the 7th inning, but he's not pitched very high quality innings at all.
He starts A.J. Ellis with a strike. Ellis always a guy who takes a lot of pitches, draws a lot of walks. On a base percentage is .386. Unfortunately now for him, he's taken 2 strikes.
Well, that last pitch is not a very good pitch. A.J. Ellis probably wanted to swing at that. It was a nice little hanging breaking ball, inner half to a right-hander. An 0-1 breaking ball from Cain. He's trying to get that low and away. That's one of the mistakes that has hurt him so far this year.
No, it's not.
When you look at the numbers on Cain, the velocity's about the same. And now you see that Field and Culbreth is hearing it and then giving some back to the Dodger dugout. A little frustration over on the Dodger side, and maybe they didn't like that second strike call on A.J. Ellis.
Might have been a little build up from the 1-0 changeup that Buster Posey got called for a ball. Dodgers got out of that at bat with a ground ball to third and got out of it, but maybe they're a little frustrated already. You're right.
Mark McGwire, the hitting coach, Don Mattingly, the manager, looking on.
This is an 0-1 breaking ball from Matt Cain. Maybe the Dodgers chirped a little bit from their dugout. Made it. K-zone had it a strike. Dodgers had it a little high.
Fastball hit down the right field line. Pence racing into the corner, but is a foul ball. The conditions changing almost by the minute here from an overcast afternoon. Remember, this game started just after 5 o'clock local. It's about 5:25 here Pacific time. And now the sun has broken through in the last few minutes, so we've got some shadows creeping out from behind home plate.
That ball wasn't hit very well, and it really traveled down the right field line. There's some wind really gusting out to right here out into the bay.
Yeah, I guarantee you the players like the first inning a lot more than they're liking this one with the shadows creeping out.
1-2 again. It didn't go.
Matt Cain was able to get that ball away from Ellis, but that's been the pitch that he has struggled with right-handers up there, having any pitch that he throws to the outside corner creep back over the middle of the plate. Just like that.
Liner to center. 1 down.
Well, Matt Cain has given up 9 home runs so far, but 6 of them to right-handers, and he really, when you analyze him, has struggled getting the ball outside to righties. You see that breaking ball, the target by Posey, and it creeps over the middle. Again, trying to go low and away. Ball creeps back over even the fastball. He's done it with his fastball and his breaking ball. That's a slider that just backs up to Braun, who just deposited in the left field bleachers, and then he's going to go low and away again. He misses all the way up and in with a hanging curveball. He's really struggled to get to that outside corner.
This is a guy who's been about as consistent a pitcher as there's been in baseball in recent years in terms of starts and innings and ERA. He's had a tremendous amount of success. You can see how different the numbers are so far this year. And the home run ball, as Oral said, has really been the biggest difference for him. Gave up only 9 home runs in the entire 2011 season. Has given up 9 already this year. Ripped up the middle, of base hit for former Giant Juan Uribe.
Watch how high this pitch is and watch where he's trying to go. See down there, and this ball looks up and leaks back towards the middle of the plate. Just a little flat and a little up. You know, if he hits a ground ball, we really don't critique it that well, but he still does not hit his spot. And when you don't hit your spot and you leave it up and you leave it closer to the middle of the plate, those are the ones that hurt you.
Right over the bill of his cap. Runner at first, 1 out. Top of the second, 1-0 Giants. And the batter was Luis Cruz. He was inserted into the lineup when Adriano Gonzalez was scratched again tonight. Juan Uribe went from third to first. Cruz came in, and he is having a miserable time so far this year. You can see from the numbers, hitting under 100 on the season. And it seems like no matter who the Dodgers put at third base, they don't get any offense from them. Things are so bad, in fact, that Dodger pitchers are hitting better this year than Dodger third basemen. And in a couple of categories like slugging percentage, OPS, it's not even close. Runner going, and Uribe into second. As he advances, have to wait for the scoring on that breaking ball down and away to see if it's a wild pitch or a pass ball. Uribe taking second base on the play. And it is a wild pitch charged to Cain.
And trying to assure that he gets it low and away, he kind of yanked it out there.
We're not going to brag about the Dodgers pitchers and their slugging percentage. I think it just tells you just how bad the third baseman have been for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Although we've seen that guy, Clayton Kershaw, have some really good at-bats. Remember the home run on opening day? And he had
something to be said for him hitting eighth.
Popped up. Who wants it? Crawford, 2 down. Got to be frustrating for a guy who could hit as well as Don Mattingly did to see his team struggle so much offensively.
He really stands in support of his team right now, that they're hurt, they're not producing, they are struggling. But he in our meetings was very positive about what they're fighting through, and he likes the attitude of the team. They're just not producing yet.
2 down for D. Gordon, the shortstop. Gordon got his first game with the Dodgers this season after spending about a month at AAA, and he went 2 for 4, single, triple, stole a couple of bases. When he makes contact, he can be a real factor.
Well, this is a tough situation for a young hitter. You don't know if he's pitching around you with 2 outs and a pitcher on deck, or if he's pitching to you.
To left field. And caught by Peguero to end the inning as the Dodgers leave a man on at second for the second inning in a row. Second, Giants 1, Dodgers nothing. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Dan Schulman, John Kruk, Oral Hershiser, Buster Olney at AT&T Park. Guillermo Quiroz, last night's hero, leads off the inning. It's a high fly ball to center. Camp with the sunglasses down makes the catch. 1 down. Here's the moment that was for Quiroz last night. 10th inning walk-off home run for the Giants for the second night in a row. It is their 5th consecutive win, and guys, in all 5 of those games, 3 against Arizona, 2 against the Dodgers, they had either a game-tying or lead-taking hit in the 8th inning or later. They have trailed in all 5 games, and they have come back to win all 5 games. How do they do it?
They're used to it, and you know that's the way they won 2 world championships the last 3 years. There's no panic. They understand. Okay, we're behind. Let's score. And it's easier said than done. Or I'm not saying that they turn a switch on and okay, it's time to go play. It's just that there's no panic in them. And sometimes you know as well as anyone that if a team has a lead, they're panicking, especially a team like the Dodgers who struggled this year.
There's no switch they turn on because it's on all the time, right from the first pitch of the game. They are gamers, they're grinders, they're gym rats, and they love to play. And there's an intensity. I came here for game 1 on Friday, sat down in the dugout seats, and there's an intensity about the way they go about their business from the on-deck circle, the bench, batting box, wherever they are locked in.
1 ball, 2 strikes. The count on Giants. Shortstop Brandon Crawford. Crawford, a guy already 5 home runs on the season. You've already seen a glimpse of his outstanding defense in this game tonight. Let's go down to Buster.
Guys, after that win last night, third base coach Tim Flannery walked into Bruce Bochy's office after the game and said, "That's it. We're addicted to one-run games." And some of the Giants players are telling me that the early part of this season reminds them of 2010 in terms of those close games every night, what they called torture.
Backhanded it short by Gordon. Low throw, dug out by Uribe. Nice play for out number 2. Let's take a look at the week that was for the San Francisco Giants. These 5 wins. Brandon Belt with a big hit in the 8th inning in Phoenix on a Monday. On Tuesday, Pablo Sandoval with a 2-run homer in the 9th as the Giants beat the D-backs 2-1. And then on Wednesday, Brandon Belt did it again with a 3-run homer in the 8th. 9-6 Giants the final. Friday night, Buster Posey with a home run to win it in the bottom of the 9th. And then last night, the home run to Ike Rose to win it in the bottom of the 10th. Just another week at the office for the San Francisco Giants.
Nothing to it.
Well, let's do the count on Matt Cain. And the inning is over. Ryu with a much better inning, getting the Giants in order. And we'll see him leading off. He's already got 4 hits this year. He'll lead it off, plus a BBTN update when we come back. All right, guys, thank you. Well, Crucky, you saw it. What do you think about the gesture that Harper made? Was that enough to get thrown out?
No, I don't think it was. And you know, they threw him out after he threw his helmet. But was that? I mean, I've thrown my helmet. That's a drop.
Celebrating Cinco de Mayo here in San Francisco and elsewhere around the country today. You can see the shadows really having an effect right now as we go to the 3rd inning. 1-0 the Giants lead. And Ryu will lead it off. Left-handed thrower, right-handed batter, a rarity at the major league level. And he is a guy, Orel, who has shown very quickly he can handle the bat up there. He's 4 for 12.
He's a very good athlete over in Korea, where he played for 7 years before he came over here. He's only still 26 years old. 2 Gold Gloves. 5, I think, strikeout awards for leading their league in strikeouts. 7 times he was an all-star right from his opening day, opening year. But he didn't bat over there, but he looks like he might be able to handle the bat a little bit.
And there are fans, Korean baseball fans, who both in Los Angeles and on the road have come out in huge numbers to see Ryu play. Swing and a miss, one down.
I don't know about that swing.
One down and back to the top of the order for Carl Crawford. The Dodgers again, if you're late joining us, are without Adrian Gonzalez again tonight, without Mark Ellis again tonight. Henry Ramirez is back on the DL with a pulled hamstring. He'll be out for a while. That makes guys like Kemp, Ethier, and this guy, Crucky, right here, Carl Crawford, so important to the Dodgers.
Yeah, especially since they're not hitting home runs. You need to create runs in other ways, and Carl Crawford can do that with his legs. He hits a ball in the gap, it's a triple. He hits a single, he can steal second base and put himself in scoring position that way.
Fouls off a breaking ball, and the count is 1-2. Let's take a look now at Do More, brought to you by Safeco. And you can see how the two Boston years just did not work out the way that Carl Crawford had hoped they would in a variety of different respects. But so far this year, the results are encouraging for Crawford. He'll take that looper into left center for a base hit.
Well, in this ballpark where it's hard to hit home runs, very pitcher friendly. Get Crawford on, maybe play a little small ball. The Dodgers need to generate some offense. He's fooled on this pitch, hits it off the end of the bat and breaks his bat, but he gets a base hit out of it as he creeped it over Crawford's head.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to hit and run right here with Nick Punto. You have a base stealer. You know, that's his job. That's what he does. Let him try to steal the base, and then now you have two chances of bringing him in with one out.
Sandoval in on the edge of the grass at third as Kane sets. Crawford with better than 400 stolen bases in his career. Don Mattingly flashing the signs. Crawford with 5 so far this season, caught twice. Look at Punto's numbers. He is 18 for 47, making the most of his opportunities to get in the lineup.
He was leaning a little bit right there.
And that's how critical the first pitch of this at bat is. 0-1. Now you can do a lot of things. You see Crawford trying to get that walking lead, trying to time Matt Cain when he comes set to how he delivers to home. He almost got caught. But when you have a base stealer out there and you throw strike one, that pitch right there, trying to get a strike on a backdoor breaking ball, if he doesn't, it's still a good pitch for the catcher to throw if Crawford decides to run.
Well, if they're going to do it, this is the count, right?
Yep, 2-1 and 3-1. You can do it also. You can go run and hit.
And Kemp's hit a double his first at bat, so you know Matt Cain is not. There's no way he wants to walk Nick Punto in this situation. He's more than likely not going to hit one out of the ballpark. Of course, as soon as I say that.
Not going. And a ripped foul, 2-2.
Well, that's surprising. Team struggling to score runs. You got your base. And I understand he had a little leg injury and that he missed a few games, but you know, if he's healthy and he can run at all, you know, you got to start putting guys in motion if you're the Dodgers.
Well, they've played kind of station to station, haven't gone with the small ball. Don Mattingly in game one, he had a Kershaw on the mound in the fourth inning, throwing a no-hitter at first and second with Cruz up, who was hitting 100 and didn't bunt him. He grounded into a double play. Just really haven't gone to the action ball.
And that's okay if Kemp's hitting. If Kemp has 7, 8, 9 homers right now, and if Ethier has 6 or 7 home runs himself, that's okay station to station. But they're not.
Yep.
They're not hitting the ball out of the ballpark. So you got to figure out a way to score runs other ways.
Running. Pitch outside, ball 3, no throw. Number 6 on the season for Crawford.
Seems like to me right here that Crawford has had the green light. Don Mattingly wasn't using the steal sign, and Crawford just decided this is when he wants to go. That first step, kind of a false step, went backwards. You'd like to see that back leg go forward before the front leg goes backwards. But Crawford gets away with the false step as he's so fast that the Giants made no attempt to throw him out.
So they've got a runner in scoring position for the third inning in a row. Strike three call.
Kane makes a quality 3-2 pitch right here, low and away on the corner. Punto just caught getting locked up. Maybe Punto was right, but Colbreth behind the plate thought it was close enough, and he got the strike. Hit the target, got the call.
It's not going to improve the mood of either Don Mattingly or Mark McGwire over in that Dodger dugout. Two down, and here's Kemp. Guess you heard this "Beat LA" chant a time or two in San Francisco. Huh?
Yeah, we heard it. I heard it over Candlestick a little bit more before the new stadium here was built. What a facility they built, and I'll tell you what, they got them a new palace here, but they didn't lose any of their passion.
They brought the brooms out, hoping for the sweep after wins Friday night and again last night. Just outside, ball 2 to Kemp, who 2 years ago was about the best player in baseball, but last year hamstring injuries twice, ran into the wall, suffered a shoulder injury, had some surgery in the offseason, and as you can see, the power has not returned for Matt Kemp, nor has he hit well with the runners in scoring position. Just 182 on the season. 3-0, a base open, Ethier on deck.
And sometimes it's just the little things in baseball that keeps you from scoring runs. Look at Carl Crawford. When he's taking his lead off second base, he's back behind the base creating an angle if Matt Kemp hits a single. But watch when the pitch is starting to throw, he starts creeping in even with the base. It's going to make it too big of a turn for him. If they hit a hard ball right at one of the outfielders, there could be a play at home even with this great speed.
Now you've talked about that a couple of times already this year with different players. Isn't that kind of a standard thing that's taught all around baseball?
Well, yeah, but some guys just can't do it. Some guys are afraid to do it because he's afraid maybe of getting picked off. And you look at Crawford, you look at Scudero, they're nowhere near him right now. He can get as big a lead as he wants, but he can move back and create a better angle.
Out of play, full count.
Somewhere you have to make up that ground if you're taking an even lead. Is it, do you loop around third base like you do when you hit a single? Or do you just hit third base straight and almost run into Tim Wallach, your third base coach?
He's using his base stealing lead, which is where he wants a walking lead in the shortest line between second and third, but he should be using his rounding third lead.
Yeah, 2 outs. If he steals, so what?
Outside, ball 4.
This is not a comfortable at bat for Matt Cain. Ethier owns him over the course of their career, and in the first at bat, Ethier hit a long fly ball to right field that was almost out of here.
Ethier has struggled as well hitting with runners in scoring position. The Dodgers have struggled as a team, hitting just .225 on the season with runners in scoring position. That's how you can be second in the league in on-base percentage and 14th in runs scored. That's hard to do.
Darn near impossible, I would think. Well, I guess it's not. They're doing it. And they had a pickoff play on with timeout call. They're trying to execute things on the sly here.
Two on, 2 out for Ethier. Remember, he's got huge career numbers against Cain. Outside, ball 1.
Tried to come a little backdoor slider right there, Matt Cain did. Ethier hit a fastball in the inner half in the first at bat, trying to get him out front. Maybe he's anxious, get him to roll over that. Ethier didn't bite.
Play on.
Two outs, man on second. Crawford with his wheels. Pickoff. I'm not sure. Concentrate on the hitter. 2 out, base hit to the outfielder, Crawford's wheel. He's going to score no matter what, unless it's a bullet right at one of the outfielders.
And maybe that tells you that Kane doesn't have a lot of confidence in trying to get Ethier out right here, and he's trying to pick someone off so Ethier leads off the next inning.
Yeah, John, that's a good point, because when a pitcher is concentrating on a runner with 2 outs and he's got somebody up there, his mind is wandering. He's searching for a way to get an out. He's not real confident he's going to get it at home plate.
And if I'm Andre Ethier, 2-0 right here, I think you always try to look to pull 2-0 so you can hit a ball out of the ballpark or try to hit it out of the ballpark. But in this situation, Kane's not going to give him nothing in. You got to have to hit something to left field.
Crawford really tried to mess with Kane by stunting out at second base. 2-0 pitch up in the air, left field. Kane gets out of it. 3rd inning in a row. The Dodgers leave a man on in scoring position. We'll see the Panda do up 3rd when we come back. To the bottom of the 3rd here in San Francisco. The Giants up 1-0, trying to sweep the series. And Andres Torres, who singled his first time up, takes down an in-ball 1 from Hyunjin Ryu. Gave up 3 hits and a run in the 1st inning. Got the Giants in order in the 2nd inning. You saw Pablo Sandoval getting ready for his at-bat this inning.
One of the great things about Ryu is all the weapons that he brought over from Korea. Fastball that he can reach touch 94 with. He'll pitch up and down with it, and then he's got a really good slider. He throws mostly to lefties, and an outstanding curveball all the way down to like 71 miles an hour. So he can really change speeds with his changeup and his curveball. And talking to him prior to this through this interpreter, he really talked about a good feel and not really having one pitch he goes to. It's what he feels that day is working. This last outing, he had 12 strikeouts, Dan. He's really a big-time strikeout pitcher, and he really did it with his fastball and his curveball.
Well, he comes into tonight with 46 strikeouts and 12 walks in his 6 starts. The last 2 pitchers to have that many strikeouts and that few walks in their first 6 major league starts, Steven Strasburg and Oral Hershiser.
No.
One hopper to short. Backs up Gordon a step. In time. 1 down. So 1 out of the inning. Scudero coming up. Pablo Sandoval moving to the on-deck circle. And as we said, he's as good a bad ball hitter, Crucky, as there is in baseball.
Well, he's the best in the game right now since Vlad Guerrero's not playing anymore. But here's last year in the World Series against Justin Verlander. We know how hard he can throw. Ball out of the zone about shoulder high. He still gets on top of it, hits it out of the ballpark. Now Albuquerque comes in, he thinks, well, let me throw down in the zone, see what we got there. And he still hits another ball out of the ballpark on a pitch down and out of the strike zone. So it's tough to pitch him anywhere because he will put the bat on the ball.
Scudero with about a 12 hopper into center field for a base hit. He had an infield hit in the first inning, and then a 12 hopper into center for a base hit here in the third inning.
I think eventually what you're going to see, if Hunter Pence struggles, they might flip-flop Posey and Sandoval because Posey understands if they're pitching around him. It's tough to pitch around Pablo, so he'll swing and drive in runs that way.
World Series MVP a year ago. Big numbers to start off 2013. And a swing out in front, taking advantage of his aggressiveness by starting him with a changeup.
Well, that's the only way, I think. He's looking dead red every pitch.
Well, if he can reach anything from, shins down up to the shoulders, you think, okay, maybe changing speeds is the way, because the bat's going to be moving.
Well, the panda hatch.
Outside, a ball and a strike. There's weight's always been a concern. He's got a sore elbow right now. But when he's in the lineup and he is in a groove, he is as dangerous a hitter just about as there is in baseball. 1-2.
And that's the thing about him right there. He can hit the ball to all fields. And he can hit the inside pitch and outside pitch to all fields. And when you can do that with that much plate coverage, it becomes dangerous to pitchers. You look at the defense, they're straight up on him. A guy hits third, usually he has one side of the field he hits to more than the other, but you can't do it with him.
Another sellout here, 181st, I believe, maybe the 180th, excuse me, 180th consecutive sellout here in San Francisco, and it seems about half of them are wearing Sandoval jerseys or hats. Count full.
Keep working him now, Dan.
Hey, if he could have reached those last two, he'd have been swinging.
Well, he does have 6 walks on the season, so.
This is one of the things Bruce Bochy told us, that is, as much of a free swinger as he is this year, he's slightly more disciplined. And you're probably going to run it first. You're holding.
Out of play.
The thing about running, Sandoval probably going to be able to put it in play, and he's going to make contact, anything close, but Ryu has a slide step. He's not your typical lefty with a big leg kick. He's got a very quick leg kick over there. So it's tough getting a good jump on him.
Won't get any easier with Buster Posey on deck. Not going. And a fly ball to left center. Crawford the catch, 2 down.
Anytime Pablo comes up, it's an adventure. He's going to be hacking. There you see the first pitch, fastball away. He swings and misses. Same pitch, he takes it. Okay, now I got him working. Fastball down and away, fastball up. Now he's being selective. Now this is overly selective for Pablo, and to me this at bat went way too long for him to be able to get a hit. But 3-2 there, he throws him a changeup up in the zone. Probably would have been a ball, but are you asking him to be selective now and be patient? Too late now. He's too good a hitter to change him. And they can say all they want about he's more selective now. He's got 6 walks and 118 at bat, well 120 at bats now.
Well, he's right up there with Josh Hamilton in terms of swinging at the highest percentage of pitches, swinging at the highest percentage of pitches outside the strike zone.
Yeah, he goes to 3-2. He probably thinks he's done something wrong.
Well, he thinks the scoreboard's wrong. He doesn't believe it when he looks out there.
Wait, I've seen 5 pitches already? This can't be me.
Posey bounced into a fielder's choice his first time up. 3-0.
Well, he'll have the green light right here.
And remember, last at bat, 2-0. Ryu threw him that changeup to get him to roll over to grounder to third to get the force at home. I don't know if he's going to throw a 3-0 changeup, but he might.
Ball 4.
Nope.
So 2 on with 2 outs for the Giants here in the bottom of the third, leading 1-0. In the batter was Hunter Pence. Picked up an RBI and a fielder's choice back in the first inning.
And he's another one that's, as soon as he sees a sign, the pitcher sees a sign from the catcher, he shakes his head, he's ready to swing.
Very high, ball 1.
Hunter Pence is kind of hitter. He does not get cheated. He's a pretty good bat ball hitter also, and he hits some of the hardest balls you'll see hit. He lets that bat thing go.
Two and 0. And now Ellis to the mound to talk with Ryu, who has lost his command of the strike zone here this inning. Well, Hunter Pence is a different kind of a guy. We talk about some of the quirks about his game. This is how he gets to the ballpark every day. He and his girlfriend coming in on their scooters. You and Dutch do that with the Phillies back in the 90s? You and Dalton take your scooters down to the back?
It was tough getting over the Walt Whitman Bridge in Philly and Jersey, you know, with the easy pass on one of the scooters.
You can kayak to the ballpark. You can take a scooter to the ballpark. They come in all different ways and in huge numbers.
What's the weight limit on one of those kayaks? I might try that.
Ball 3.
Ryu usually really poised and likes to live in the strike zone, but the Giants gave him his first loss, his only loss this year, and they got 10 hits off him in 6 1/3 innings. He's looked like he's trying to live around the edges. Not being quite as aggressive as he has been in some of his other outings.
And with a big bullpen game yesterday, you know, he has to go deep, but you know, the Giants are getting his pitch count up by taking all these pitches, and well, not taking them, he's just not throwing anywhere close enough for them to swing.
Yeah, rookie Matt McGill knocked out in the second inning yesterday. Full count.
Wow.
Threw that one well too. 93 miles an hour he crossed into.
And that to me is a shadow ball, because Hunter Pence is swinging usually 3-1. If it's a fastball, it's close, he's swinging, but you know, in these shadows right now, he might not be able to pick it up.
Runners will be on the move.
And that's what you see with shadows, late on balls. You know, if you can't pick it up, you're going to be hesitant a little bit, and once you're a split second of hesitation, you're going to foul balls off if you hit them at all.
And again, it keeps changing.
Yeah.
Now the shadows have disappeared. It's clouded over a little bit. So
this is a blast.
Ryu about to throw his 26th pitch of the inning, trying to emerge unscathed. He will not. Lined into left field, a base hit. Scutaro will score. Posey to third. Pence on his way to second. Safe.
Now Ryu goes to a curveball right here. The shadows are gone. That's a little slider, really. A little flat slider. He does a great job staying on that. And Crawford did a nice job keeping this ball in front of him down the line. Holding Pence to the double. As the relay comes in here, D. Gordon makes a little hesitation and thinking about second, and that gives Pence a chance to get in there.
Yeah, to me, that's a situation where Crawford has to throw that ball into second. It's a 3-2 count. You know the runners are running. He's good. Buster Posey's going to make it to third easily on that ball. Got to try to keep Pence at first base.
Posey at third, Pence at second. 2-0 Giants. And Peguero with a fly ball to left. Inning over. But another run for the Giants, a 2-0 lead as they try to sweep the series. One of the things that makes this ballpark in this area so beautiful and so special, McCovey Cove out beyond the right field fence, where not only can you take a kayak out, but tonight, guys, you can apparently go get yourself a hot dog out on McCovey Cove. You just paddle over to the floating hot dog stand and get them any way you want. What do you say, Cracky?
Cinco de Mayo, they're giving out hot dogs. I got it. That makes sense.
You want to try one of those kayaks? Go out there.
I would try one of those hot dogs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that would hold me.
No.
I'll be afraid if it tipped over. How would you get out?
We'd have some backup for you. We'd take care of it.
Yeah.
We wouldn't send you out there alone.
What, like a lifeguard or something?
Yeah.
David Hasselhoff.
Maybe a whole crew.
David Hasselhoff, don't get me. He can sing to me too while we're out there.
A.J. Ellis rips a ball to deep left field and caught by Peguero on the track. We talk a lot, guys, about the shadows and how they affect hitters. What about outfielders?
Yeah, I was going to say he got a really good jump and ran a very accurate route, not seeing that ball perfectly from the shadows to the light over there to the corner of the shadows of the light tower where he ended up catching it.
There's Juan Uribe. Well, traditionally, when Sunday Night Baseball comes to the West Coast, that means it's a 5 o'clock local start. You're dealing with the shadows. You're also dealing with, by and large, some pretty good pitchers' parks out here, whether it's this one. Dodger Stadium, obviously a good pitcher's park as well. So you get a lot of low-scoring games on Sunday nights on the West Coast.
I believe that's the combo platter. Great hitters, pitchers, ballparks,
Yep.
and also a lot of great pitching.
You got good memories from playing 5 o'clock West Coast game, huh?
No, I don't.
You see Buster Posey. He's in the shadows kind of from the waist down and in the sunlight from the waist up.
And the frustrating thing, if you're an outfielder, do you put your glasses on? Do you take them off? You know, these guys now don't have the flip-offs. They have the, you know, the Oakley ones that they either put them on top of their hat or they put them down.
Well, explain to the audience, John, what it's like to be a hitter and have those shadows as far as trying to pick up the ball.
It's hard to pick up spin, and so you basically gauge everything off velocity, but you can lose pitches. I mean, I faced Nolan Ryan in a game in San Diego in a day, you know, one of those twilight doubleheaders. That was a blast.
Good times, huh?
That was special.
Yeah. Pop up.
Rather be on the kayak.
Scudero battling the sun makes the catch 2 down.
Yeah, as a pitcher, you knew that from your hitters and other hitters telling you about it, how bad it is, and you always wanted to try and throw balls that change plane. Like, so I thought a curveball was better than a slider. I thought the fastball down was a lot better than the fastball up in their eyes, because they kind of hit more off that they first saw, and they really couldn't make an adjustment if you could make the ball move.
Well,
2 down for Luis Cruz.
No one made it move.
Straight ahead in a hurry.
About 100.
Cruz with a pop-up his first time up, struggling to get to the 100 mark. Never mind the Mendoza line. This was a guy who last year came up and gave the Dodgers a lot of production at third base. A guy who'd been in the minors for a long time. But last year got 283 at bats with the Dodgers, hit 297.
You've got to hurry to get to that.
You'd have to triple his output to get to that. Sharply hit, but right at Sandoval. Inning over. Good pitching, good defense. The recipe for the Giants so far tonight. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. Back here in San Francisco, we go to the bottom of the fourth. Time now to get some FaceTime, brought to you by Edward Jones. Buster Olney with Don Mattingly.
Tom, what'd you see in Ryu that last half inning?
He's okay. He got a little bit out of sync there, it looked like. You usually don't see him rush very often. He got a little fast. But he got it back together a lot like that first inning. He gets in trouble and he'll work himself back out.
Now, Adrian Gonzalez was a late scratch from the lineup. How much of is he an option for you as a pinch hitter as this game goes along?
He's an option to be a pinch hitter for sure. He wasn't real sure about having to dive for a ball or anything like that, and we just weren't willing to take a chance with that.
Don, thanks.
Third game in a row, Adrian Gonzalez was in the original starting lineup. Third game in a row he's been scratched because of a sore neck. Don Mattingly, the manager, guys, is in the last year of his contract. There is a perception, rightly or wrongly, that he's on the hot seat. New ownership, huge payroll, high expectations. Now, as we know, the Dodgers have had a slew of injuries. And remember, they did the first half of last year when they were playing probably over their heads for a couple of months. How do you guys look at the status of Don Mattingly right now?
Well, he's a great baseball guy and a great guy to be around, and very low key. The players absolutely love playing for him. They will never quit on him. But they're not able to put anything together. I think he will, might have some trouble getting an extension on that contract.
Well, the bottom line is if their pitching was healthy, and if the everyday players were playing up to their capabilities, this discussion wouldn't be happening because they would be right there at the top of this division. You can't do anything about players underperforming. And it happened last year when they made the trade. As soon as they made the trade with Boston, oh my gosh, this is the best team in baseball right off the bat. Well, it didn't work out. And it's not Don Mattingly's fault. It's up to they say, well, there was no chemistry. That's up to the players. That's not up to the manager. The manager, can help things, but, if the players aren't into it, then I'm not saying they're not into it, but, they're the ones who have to take the game and say, okay, we're winning this when the manager can't do it for you.
Here's Brandon Crawford. Well, Magic Johnson, who's, of course, involved in the ownership group for the Dodgers, made a statement before the year saying basically that if they don't get to the World Series, the season would be a disappointment. Now, as we have seen often in baseball in recent years, we saw it with the Red Sox, we've seen it with the Marlins, and potentially this year with teams like the Dodgers, the Angels, and the Blue Jays, you can go out and get the big names. On paper, it looks great, but between the white lines, it doesn't always work out so well.
Well, Magic sets the bar high for himself, sets the bar high for the organization, and when he was a player, he only thought about championships, and I'm sure that's what that quote was about. Not about really motivating the troops, except just saying what the goal of the organization is.
I just think when you look at this team, we talked about it today in our meeting. There's no Magic Johnson on this team. There's not one guy that says, get on my back, I will carry this team, and I'll win this thing for us. Remember in the championship game the one year he played center because Kareem was out.
Yep.
And he dominated the game, was MVP of the series. I don't know if this team has that guy that stand up and say, this is my team, I'm going to win this thing for us, you guys come along for the ride. I just don't think they have it right now.
They're definitely having trouble finding an identity, especially with all the injuries and the different things that are happening with the everyday lineup. Crawford coming back and being okay, but Kemp really coming through with the shoulder injury, not really producing yet. Andre Ethier not there yet, so they're having some trouble.
They have some really good character guys, but they're not really full-time players in Punto and Schumacher. Mark Ellis is a full-time player, but not one of the stars on the team. Isn't Matt Kemp, doesn't he have to be the guy? If they're going to find a leader among one of the core stars on this team, doesn't he have to be that guy? And can he be that guy if he's not hitting as well as he's capable of?
No, he can't be the guy if he's not playing well, because the last thing you want to do is hear from a guy who says, this is the way we have to play, when he's not playing up to those expectations either.
3 up, 3 down to go the Giants. We are at the end of 4 in San Francisco. The Giants up 2-0. Baseball presented by Taco Bell. AT&T Park, San Francisco. Giants up 2-0 on the Dodgers. Going to the top of the 5th. In between innings, time for some FaceTime. Brought to you by Edward Jones, Buster Olney with Bruce Bochy.
Bruce, there's been some concern about Matt Cain. What are you seeing tonight?
Well, he looks good. He's under control. He's throwing strikes. I like the tempo he's got today, so hopefully he continues that. What's it been like to manage Hunter Pence, who's driven in a couple of runs tonight? I tell you what, he's a manager's dream the way he plays. He's all out. We call him full throttle, and he shows up every day. He plays hard for 9 innings, plays the game the way he should be, and he's a joy to have around.
Bruce, thanks.
And they do have a lot of diverse personalities. It's not like this is a vanilla group. They got a lot of different kind of guy on this team, but the guys they acquire, Brian Sabian, the GM, and once Bruce Bochy gets a hold of them in the clubhouse, they've got an amazing ability, guys, to have everybody focus on the team over the individual, and that has paid off with 2 World Series championships in the last 3 years.
And your best player is quiet, and Buster Posey. And when we talked to Bruce Bochy today, he says, you know, he's a leader, but he lets these guys be themselves. And some teams, when your leader's a quiet, stoic guy, the other guys kind of try to take that persona, and if it's not in you, it's not in you. You know, I remember when I first got traded to the Phillies, Mike Schmidt had just retired, and Mike was a stoic, quieter guy, and all the players started acting like, you know, we're acting like him, quiet and whatever. And when I remember when I walked that class, I got, oh my gosh, this is going to stink. This team's boring.
Well, it changed a little bit over the next few years.
Well, this Giant clubhouse is not boring with Pablo Sandoval down at third base. He brings energy every day, and Hunter Pence, who Bochy just said it was a joy to have. Those are the loud guys, the energy guys that'll keep the dugout alive and keep the roster alive.
Well, Sergio Romo's got a lot of personality.
Yeah.
Of course, they had Brian Wilson for a few years. That's a different kind of guy.
And the perfect manager to let them guys be that way. You know, some managers might try to change him, and that's, you know, see, this is also a reason I don't like a young player who hits 8th and can run like D. Gordon. You know, now you're bunting him over instead of you're taking a weapon away from him, hitting him 8th. But I understand with the year he had last year and the other guys in the lineup that if they're hitting the way they are, he is the 8th hitter.
Sandoval creeping in at third. Gordon the lead. Ryu squares. He's running. And the bunt is down foul. 0-2 is the count. Would you rather see the Dodgers try to straight steal Gordon and then have Ryu bunt him to third?
Yes. Yes, and if he, believe me, if Ryu doesn't put that ball on the ground, D. Gordon's safe at second. He had an unbelievable jump.
Not a lot of deception with 2 strikes here. Ryu is going to try to do it again.
Ryu's got his hand wrapped around the barrel of the bat. Now, fortunately, he's a left-handed pitcher. If he happens to catch those fingers, he's not doing it with his pitching hand. But you see a still shot of that. You want to kind of keep the fingers and the thumb behind the barrel of the bat. He's got them wrapped around. And you can tell over in Korea they had the DH full time. He hasn't really gotten used to bunting correctly yet.
2-2. Ryu's looking down at Tim Wallach. Wallach's not even looking at him. Now he's looking across to first base, getting the signs from Don Mattingly and then relaying them to Ryu. That was a good third baseman in his day right there. That was a good player.
Really good.
You see the wipe down the arm. Don't take those as he's taking the bunt off. A lot of times the wipes down there are locking the bunt in.
And he bunts it foul for a strikeout. The MLB season keeps rolling on here on ESPN. Tomorrow night at 7, it'll be Justin Upton and the Atlanta Braves taking on Joey Votto and the Cincinnati Reds. And then Wednesday night, it's the Minnesota Twins in Boston against the Red Sox. Both games are also available live on Watch ESPN. The Braves beating Atlanta earlier today, winning 9-4, ending a 3-game losing streak. Brian McCann, by the way, is expected to come off the DL tomorrow, so the Braves will get their all-star catcher back. Tim Hudson had picked up the win today as he goes to 4-1 on the season. Runner goes. Throw down. Not in time. Boy, he can fly.
He was not only safe on the front of the bag, he was safe on the back of the bag. Real good jump and very fleet of foot. That first step was the front foot again, a little half step. Boy, he could even gain more ground if he gets that back foot going forward. You see, he slides in, and by the time the ball would even got there as far as the tag, he was past the bag.
Two different ways of stealing bases, he and Crawford. D. Gordon lifts his front foot up and sets it down. Crawford actually moves his back. Remember, Tim Raines used to swivel. He had like his feet were on a like a turntable, and he just spun and ran. Man, he was special to watch.
You like to get that back leg gaining ground on second as the first step.
Let's see if the Dodgers can come up with a big hit. They're 0 for 5 so far tonight with runners in scoring position. And this has been a problem that Don Mattingly, Mark McGwire have seen at times over the course of the season. They saw it on Friday night when they had 11 hits, drew 7 walks, scored 1 run.
Not getting it done, is it? And that's a frustrating part. You have some guys that have that ability to drive in runs and be run producers. Just when one guy struggles, it seems like the rest follow for a few games.
When you know a lineup, you're pitching against a lineup that struggles with runners in scoring position. You take a temperature immediately. Do they swing at strikes? Because a lot of them start to feel the pressure of driving that run in, and you don't have to throw them strikes. They get themselves out. I'm sure that's what the Dodgers have been doing a lot of times.
Line to right field. Pence is there to make the catch. 2 down.
Or they just hit in bad luck. That ball was smoked by Crawford.
I tell you, that ball gets over Hunter Pence's head because he misjudged it. That's an inside the Parker. Big as that alley is out there, it's going to roll around that chain link fence after the 421. Yeah, Crawford, this is a beautiful 3-1 swing. You hit it as good as you can hit it. This is one of those things. It's nothing you can do. Look at Hunter. Never a doubt. Worrell, never a doubt. Matt Cain was breathing a sigh of relief when that ball left the bat. Had that one all the way.
2 down in the inning, and here's Punto 0 for 2.
This is a guy who'll grind out an at bat for you and play the game right. He is a hard-nosed player, and he knows how to play it in a big-time way.
Ground ball to first to end the inning. The Dodgers 0 for 7. Now with the runners in scoring position, the Giants still have the lead. Park located at 24 Willie Mays Plaza. And tomorrow is Willie Mays' 82nd birthday. Some say the best player who ever lived. Better than 300 career batting average, 660 home runs, 338 stolen bases. And for much of his career, considered among the great center fielders of all time. That famous catch that he made, racing back, making the over-the-shoulder catch. Either of you guys ever get a chance to spend much time with him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I was a Giant for 1 year in '98.
Yeah.
He was around all the time.
Yeah.
And he is quite the gentleman and knows a tremendous amount about this game and still can teach it.
Andres Torres lifts a fly ball to very shallow center field, drops in front of Kemp for a base hit. That's how it's going. The Giants are with broken bats and getting jammed, coming up with hits. The Dodgers have hit 2 or 3 balls on the screws right at people.
Oh, this is one of those. It's not dark yet, but the sun's not out, and you know, you watch that ball, and when that ball left the bat, Matt Kemp took a step back and then hesitated coming in, probably because he didn't see the ball.
Now Scudero 2 for 2. One an infield hit, one a little flare into shallow center.
Remember, the Giants had this set up in the first inning and didn't hit and run, but Scudero swung and grounded to third. Might put him in motion here.
Well, they throw behind him. Uribe fires down to second, and Torres is out easily.
I had a feeling they were going to put him in motion right there and start up 2-0. Ryu does a good job, or the Dodgers from the bench giving the pickoff sign, getting Torres picked off. He looked like he almost went on first move, so it was more of a straight steal than a hit and run.
1-3-6 on the play as the runner is erased.
If that was a hit and run, that's poor base running.
Yep.
What a lift Marco Scudero gave the Giants last year after coming over from Colorado, both in the last 2 months of the regular season and then into the playoffs as well. Played the best baseball of his life and was rewarded with a new contract. The Giants re-signing Angel Pagan and Marco Scudero, and really had remarkably little turnover between last year's team and this year's team. Popped up. Right center, Kemp. So 2 down. Pablo Sandoval coming up. Let's take a look now at Sandoval's Hot Zone, brought to you by T-Mobile.
You see the red 350, the blue 250, and you notice a lot of those little red squares aren't in the strike zone. That's Pablo's Hot Zone.
We look at these a lot.
Yeah.
With a lot of different hitters.
Yeah.
We've never seen one like this.
The middle ones dead center. Those are usually ones that are lit up red. For Pablo, those aren't a good pitch for him. Throw it down the middle and hope.
Against lefties on balls outside the strike zone, he's hitting almost 300. That is the best in baseball.
Throw him strikes. Pound the zone on Pablo.
Looks like Ryu's game plan, Oral, is to change speeds with him a lot. Hasn't thrown him many fastballs.
He's not only trying to throw the ball for balls outside the zone, maybe into some of those hot zones, but he knows the bat's going to get started, so he's going to take the sting out of the bat.
Ball 3. This is the stat we were alluding to a little bit earlier, that Sandoval so far this year has a higher batting average on balls outside the strike zone than inside the strike zone. Goes against everything you think should happen. And then an even rarer commodity, he takes a walk.
Is that his 7th walk, John?
7. 7 walks, 120 ABs though, so he's working. He's working it.
He might lead the league in hitting, but he'll never lead the league in walks.
Runner at first, 2 down for Buster Posey. Fielder's choice and a walk tonight. Giants with a run in the first. Hunter Pence driving it in with a fielder's choice, and a run in the third. Pence again driving it in with a double. as the Giants try to sweep the series and win their 6th in a row.
I understand Ryu has a slide step, but I mean, Pablo's on. Wouldn't you rather go stuff now? Not worry, because he hasn't attempted a stolen base this year. Why would you even fool with the slide step unless you're trying to trick Posey?
Posey got jammed a bit, but fights it off into center for a base hit.
That was a good piece of hitting to pull his hands in just enough to get the barrel of the bat on it. Didn't sound real good off the bat, but he hit a good line drive and squared it up. A little fastball inside, and you see it running in there on Posey, and he makes a good swing, getting his hips out of the way, pulling his hands in. He just makes so many good swings that even when he attacks a ball that maybe is a little hard to handle, he still hits a line drive. Foot gets down, hands are going back to coil, clears the hips, gets the hands inside, and just nice. Squares it up.
So you hit 330.
If you're going to learn how to swing from the right side, that's a pretty good swing to copy.
I'd still take Miguel Cabrera's.
Well, yeah.
That was pretty special, too. Look at this guy.
Off the wall. Sandoval scores. Posey getting the wave. Pence has driven in all 4 runs tonight.
A very aggressive hitter, Hunter Pence. You see he's swinging at the bad ball right there, up and away, but he swings hard, and he squares this up, and he drove it so far over Ethier's head, he didn't even bother going back. He went to play it off the wall right away.
Figueroa with the ground ball to short to end the inning, but Hunter Pence has done it again. A 2-run double. He's got all 4 RBIs tonight. 4-0 lead for the Giants with a BBTN update on the way. All right, Kurt Carl, thank you. And Roy Halladay said he felt good until the last couple of starts. After his start 2 starts ago against Pittsburgh is when he started feeling something. But, Oral, I think a lot of people suspected there must be something wrong because he's been so good for so long. And now you never know till the doctor takes a look at him. But if he's going to see the doctor, he must think there's a pretty good chance there's a problem.
Yeah, maybe there was some looseness in the shoulder or something. Now he's got some pain, but we saw the velocity drop, and then we saw the location stay away. He was getting people out of the strike zone, but in the strike zone, he was not getting very many people out at all.
Matt Kemp leads off the 6th inning for the Dodgers, who are down 4-0.
What's amazing about the shoulder is that when it's loose, it's really good and it's fun to pitch because you have that flexibility and you have that zip and you get movement. But when it gets too loose, that's when it starts to break, and that's what pitchers usually have to get something fixed.
Kemp tonight, a double and a walk. He'll be followed by Ethier and then A.J. Ellis. 3-4-5. Remember, Matt Cain is looking for his first win of the season. 6 starts in. He's winless with an ERA over 6.
Well, early in his career, that was typical for him to struggle to find wins, but it wasn't his quality. It was that Giants never scored him any runs. He was very much a hard luck pitcher early in his career.
Gotten better and better through the perfect game last year, rewarded with a huge contract by the Giants. Number 2010, he made 3 starts in the postseason, 1 in each round, did not give up an earned run in any of them. In that perfect game against Houston last June. 14 strikeouts in the perfect game.
You know, Dan, it really surprised me on that play to right field where Buster Posey ended up scoring Hunter Pence's double. I thought it was a double, but I thought there was an error in right field by Andre Ethier that has not been charged an error with playing that ball off the wall with his bare hand instead of his glove. If he gloves it, gets the ball in, I don't think Posey scores.
No error charged on the play, so a double and 2 RBIs as Kemp fouls off another one. Let's take another look.
Yeah, this is a ball. You see the chain link and you see the brick, and that ball hit the brick and it just got on Ethier a little quicker than what he thought. But that's a glove ball. You have to catch that one with your glove. There's no way you're catching that with your bare hand, as Ethier just showed us right there. Yeah, he catches with his glove. He makes a good throw. They have to hold Posey at third, and now it's a 3-run game instead of a 4-run game.
And it's another example of how fielding percentage could be so misleading as a statistic. We've seen tonight Carl Crawford, you guys saying throwing to the wrong base, allowing a runner to get from first to second, but it doesn't show up in the box score. Ethier trying to barehand a ball, should have gloved it. Might have cost them a run, but it doesn't show up in the box score.
And I always thought it was also kind of odd when there's like first and third and the batter hits a ball that should be a double play and the second baseman or shortstop doesn't make a good throw to first. They throw it wide, but nobody advances. And should have been a routine double play, and there's no, hitter gets an RBI because there was no double play, and the batter, the fielder gets no penalty.
Yeah, who came up with you can't assume a double play? Why can't you assume a double play?
Wasn't a pitcher.
Some guy who couldn't field.
Wasn't the guy who didn't want an earned run.
Yeah.
Some guy who couldn't field.
Kemp battling.
Yeah, this is where I think if you're the Dodgers, you have to. This is the inning where you think, okay, we're down 4. We haven't been able to hit with anyone in scoring position so far in this game. You got Matt Kemp up, who's your best player. Let's get it going right now and try to score a couple, just to try to get into the Giants bullpen that's been used too this weekend.
Again, the 1-2. Good slider down and away for strike 3.
Well, there's a quality pitch for an out pitch from a Matt Cain, who's been struggling to get the ball down there low and away when he needs to. This ball's biting and gets it out there. Kemp helps him a little bit. That ball was low and away right out of his hand, but he got it to bite, and he got it away from a right-handed hitter.
4th strikeout of the night for Cain.
Sometimes a guy throws so many strikes to you in a bat, you foul balls off. You don't think he's going to throw a ball, so you're already in swing mode when the ball leaves his hand.
Ethier lines one to right field, a base hit. One of the reasons the Dodgers have struggled so much this year is how poorly they have played within their own division. They are 5-12. against the National League West, whereas the Giants are 14-6. And the Dodgers will have another series against a team from their own division beginning tomorrow night. They'll be back down at Dodger Stadium against Arizona. Giants will stay home and they'll welcome in the Phillies and then the Braves. A.J. Ellis is 0 for 2.
He's hit the ball hard, though. A.J. Ellis has it. He has good numbers against the Giants in his career. And like I said, it's the 6th inning. It's time to get something going if you're the Dodger offense, or else, Matt Cain's just going to cruise into the 7th, 8th inning in this game, and you know that their bullpen is an issue today.
Got on top of that first slider, had good bite, got it to the outer half. That one he came underneath. When he's gotten ahead a few times, 0-1. He's made some of his worst pitches. He's still got the 0 up there, but in his head, he's saying, I can't continue to make a few of these mistakes.
Into right field, a base hit. Ethier will stop at second, and the Dodgers, for the 5th time in 6 innings in this game, have a runner in scoring position.
Tries to throw another slider. You see Guillermo sitting up outside, has to reach back. That ball just kind of never gets out to the outside. Ellis does a good job staying inside it and driving it to right field.
That was definitely a hit and run, because you see Ethier peeking back, but I don't think that's a deke, because Ethier was watching the whole time. Escudero's trying to fool him right there, but that's one of the little things that can cost you. That's a hit and run. You're running. Hunter Pence, yes, he has a good arm. Sometimes not very accurate with that arm, but you got to take a chance and go to third on that ball. It's a hit and run. That's what the object is. If he hits a base hit, you go to third.
You can see how they've struggled. 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. First pitch swinging, Uribe. Fly ball to right center. Pence the catch, 2 down. Dodgers 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position.
You wonder right here if Don Mattingly hadn't contemplated maybe putting Adrian Gonzalez in to hit. I know it's just the 6th inning, but Cruz is hitting. There you see Adrian right there with his glove ready to go. But Cruz is hitting 0-90.
0 for 2 tonight. 2 on, 2 out. Gonzalez a late scratch again tonight because of the sore neck. First pitch swinging, weak ground ball to second, and the inning is over. The offensive misery continues for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Welcome back to the beautiful Bay Area here, and welcome back to Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell. Along with John Kruk, Oral Hershiser, Buster Olney, I'm Dan Schulman. We go to the bottom of the 6th. 4-0 Giants looking to sweep the Dodgers. The Giants trying to extend a winning streak to 6. Hyunjin Ryu facing Guillermo Quiroz, who has hit a fly ball to center and a fly ball to right tonight. Getting a start behind the plate, so Buster Posey's at first base tonight.
I don't think the Giants are going to have to come back from behind like they have the first 2 games. Not the way the Dodgers are hacking away.
They are not having quality at bats tonight. A lot of early swinging in key situations. Ryu has given up 4 runs on 8 hits through 5 innings. Ground ball to third. Scooped up by Cruz. 1 down. Well, one of the themes so far this season has been so much good pitching, and there's some guys putting up incredible numbers who aren't getting a lot of attention, including Jordan Zimmerman of Washington. Look at the numbers for Patrick Corbin of Arizona, Jeremy Guthrie of Kansas City, and Hisashi Iwakuma for Seattle. As we go down to Buster, you hear about Strasburg, you hear about Gio Gonzalez, but Buster, you don't hear that much about Jordan Zimmerman.
No, and he's got everything going. In spring training, he worked on a changeup, and if you saw his start the other day, he had everything going, all 4 quadrants of the strike zone. One Scott told me it was the best game he's seen pitched in the last 2 years. It seems like he's becoming a star.
Brandon Crawford into right field, and Ethier is there to make the catch. 2 down. You know, they've got another guy, Ross Detweiler, who's the number 4 guy in that rotation, and he's awfully good.
He's really their number 5, because they had Heron penciled in at 3 or 4 behind
Gio
and Strasburg and Zimmerman. But I remember being in their spring training camp last year, and pitching coach Stephen Caddy, I asked him about him, and he said, Strasburg, of course, has the best stuff, and he's yet to see Gio a lot last year. But he said Zimmerman might be the best one long term out of all of them. He said he's got great stuff, and because he had the shoulder, they took away that changeup.
Giants go in a hurry here in the bottom of the 6th, lead 4-0 at the end of 6 on a beautiful night here in San Francisco. Taco Bell is brought to you by iShares by BlackRock. Visit iShares.com to learn more. Final game of this 3-game series between the Dodgers and the Giants. won in dramatic fashion both Friday night and again last night with a 4-0 lead. It feels like it's bigger than that, the way Matt Cain is pitching, the way the Dodgers are struggling in their at-bats. And with Hyunjin Ryu up second here in the 7th inning, we may see a pinch hitter as Matt Guerrier is now up in the Dodger pen. And Skip Schumacher has emerged into the on-deck circle. D. Gordon's going to lead it off for the Dodgers here in the 7th. He's flied out to left and walked and stolen a base. Cain cruising. Well, I shouldn't say cruising through 6 innings because the Dodgers have had men on in 5 of the 6 innings. But when he's needed to make a pitch or pitches to get out of a jam, he has done so. Looking for his first win of the season. Chopper to first. Posey, 1 down.
Well, Matt Cain has struggled with his location coming into tonight, but tonight he has made some quality pitches when he's gotten ahead. A fastball away right here. He goes down low and away. Comes back with another fastball to get Ethier right there. Then he can go there with the slider and get out front in a 2-2 and make it down and away. Fastball sinker in at 92, and then another break ball. You got Matt Kent to chase. He's been outstanding. A little bit of anemic offense from the Dodgers and some quality pitches from Cain. Got some zeros up there.
1 down in the 7th, and here's Schumacher. Versatile guy, can play second, can play the outfield. Things were so bad Monday against Colorado, he even pitched an inning and hit 90 miles an hour.
I guess if it came down to it, they could have him pitching against the Orioles and Chris Davis. Be a good matchup.
Well, good action, Orel, on that pitch. A cutter, I guess you want to call it, right in on the hands of Schumacher.
Yeah, he's got a variety of pitches. His slider that he likes to throw, and sometimes he'll flatten it out and come underneath it and cut it in on lefties.
That was a 2-strike hack with only 1 strike.
Ground ball to short. 2 down as Posey keeps his foot on the bag. Tuesday night on E60, Buster Olney brings you an inside look at the 23 perfect games. And of course, Matt Cain is one of them. The guy on the mound right now has one of those 23 perfect games. E60, Tuesday at 7 on ESPN and also live on Watch ESPN, a display case, a special tribute to one of the best pitched games in baseball history. $27 up, 27 down, 14 strikeouts last June against Houston.
Looks like they had dug the rubber up. The rubber's in there in that display case. Final out.
How about the time Houston's going through right now, guys? They lost 17-2 yesterday to Detroit, and Justin Verlander took a no-hitter into the 7th inning today. The Tigers hung on to win 4-3. Crawford with a nice running catch as he makes a play to retire Carl Crawford for the 2nd time tonight. 7th inning stretch at AT&T. Beautiful night, beautiful ballpark, Cinco de Mayo. Everybody's having fun except the Dodgers. As we take a look at our game track brought to you by Jeep, they have been shut out on only 5 hits. They have had runners in scoring position in 5 of 7 innings tonight, have not cashed in a single one of them. And Matt Cain has been very good, looking for his first win of the season. Matt Guerrier comes in out of the Dodger pen. After 6 innings by Hyunjin Ryu, Guerrier, 3rd year with the Dodgers, missed most of last season with elbow trouble, making his 13th appearance of this season. Infield hit for Andres Torres, who's now 3 for 4.
Hit it where they're not. Real good sinking fastball by Guerrier, but he hit it right up the middle, chopped it up there with his wheels. Even if you get a glove on it, you're not going to catch him. Watch this ball sink a little bit as it comes at you, and you're Torres, but then you put it in play and he can really run.
And that's a problem with the sinker, or as you hit on top of it, it gives it top spin. Once it hits that hard dirt in front of home, bounces over Guerrier's head, it's just going to continue to pick up speed going through the infield. This is if I'm the Giants, I'm putting something on. I'm full throttle on it right now, trying to bury him.
Good speed, good contact hitter. Marco Scutaro is 2 for 3. So the top 2 hitters in the Giants lineup, Torres and Scutaro, have combined for 5 hits.
A little different with a right-hander on the mound now with this combination of Scutaro and Torres. Ryu held him close and picked him off. Torres will be able to get a little better jump over there at first.
Pretty good lead by Torres, not going. Swing and a miss by Scutaro.
Well, it hurts when you take a swing and your bottom hand comes off the bat, slips off the bat. Done that a few times. That's very painful. So Scutaro there flexing his left hand, which is his bottom hand.
Runner goes. Ground ball to short. Gordon no play at second. He'll take the out at first. A double play if they don't start the runner.
Well, for a young shortstop like D. Gordon, he'll learn that he can go ahead and feed that ball to second. It's hit hard enough that even if the runner from first to second beats the throw, they're going to be able to complete the double play. Still going to get one out, the one at first, but go ahead and make the throw to second and take a shot and get in the call.
I think one of those, the infielders just tell themselves if the hitter's running, they hear the first baseman yelling, it's going, he's going, the base runner, running, and they just automatically assume that, it's a hit and run. I'm not going to get the guy at second, not even going to look.
Now Sandoval, a base hit, a fly ball, and a walk. First pitch swinging, chopper to short. 2 down, Torres to third.
I'll give the Giants credit. They tried to put a play on a hit and run with Torres. The Dodgers just had it defended perfectly with Punto covering second on the steal. Normally it would be the second baseman or the shortstop would be covering because Scutaro hits the ball so well the other way. But they called it right and recorded it out. Now it's going to take a 2-out hit by Posey to bring a run in.
Posey's 1 for 2 tonight, has scored a couple of runs. Ball and a strike on Posey. Torres at third, 2 down. A luxury that Bruce Bochy has. He can keep Posey's bat in the lineup, but move him to first base every now and again. Usually does it when a left-hander starts for the opposition. Brandon Belt gets the night off. won a batting title, Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, MVP, and 2 World Series. Long throw coming for Cruz in time. End of 7. The Dodgers coming up in the 8th, trying to scratch across some runs. We'll see the heart of the order, including Matt Kemp. Looking to honor our nation's veterans and military service members. 30 of them, one for each MLB team, will be saluted in the 2013 MLB All-Star Game. To nominate, go to tributeforheroes.com. MLB.TV celebrating 11 years. Watch every out-of-market regular season game live on your favorite supported mobile and connected devices with MLB.TV Premium. Visit MLB.TV for details. All kinds of folks here at AT&T tonight. He can even operate his smartphone with that mask on. He's enjoying his Giants leading here in the 8th inning.
Apparently WWE Raw's here tomorrow night.
Kane on the mound. Nick Punto leads it off for the Dodgers. Curveball for a strike.
Nice little breaking ball on pitch 101 from Matt Kane.
All's quiet in the Giants' pen. Just missed. A ball and a strike. One defensive change for the Giants as Brandon Belt comes in at first base for Buster Posey. Kane doing a good job, Oral, staying in front of these hitters. He's thrown a first pitch strike to 9 of the last 10 batters he's faced, and he's only walked 2 guys tonight.
Yeah, he's been the Matt Kane of old, not the one with the 6.5 ERA coming into this game this year. You got to believe they've got a little action in the bullpen just in case.
Left-hander Javier Lopez just now starting to throw.
That serves a double-edged sword. If Punto gets on and Kemp gets on, Lopez can come in to get easier, and then if of course they still have that big bat of Adrian Gonzalez back over there.
Nice job by Kane on the comebacker. Saw the broken bat, caught the ball, made the play.
Now, the most pitches he's gone this year is 113, and that was against the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley. Right here, this 105th pitch busts this bat and gets him a leadoff out here.
Very strong outing for Matt Cain. He'll face Matt Kemp right now, who's doubled, walked, and struck out. When you think about the Giants' chances, big picture, long term this year, can the starting pitching do what the starting pitching has done in recent years? Bumgarner, one of the best. Cain, not his last 6 starts, but historically one of the best, and looking like one of the best tonight.
And Zito and, Lincecum have kind of been up and down, but you really hope that Matt Cain gets back on the beam. Just for baseball fans, he's been such a great pitcher and a horse on this team.
And Ryan Vogelsong also is struggling this year. But
they don't have a lot of starting pitching depth. You get by those original 5.
Yeah, but that's the thing. When they had great pitching, the big complaint was, well, they don't score enough runs, but yet they still win. 2010. Now that they're scoring runs and their pitching is so great, they just find okay, what do we need today to win?
Yep. Taking all the way,
do we
draws
need
a
10
walk.
runs to win 10-9? Okay, we'll get you 10. 3-2 game, no problem. They're amazing.
Bullpen's been rock solid for the most part in recent years as right-hander George Contos joins the left-hander Javier Lopez. And Bruce Bochy has made the call for the left-hander. Matt Cain is going to walk off the mound with the biggest ovation he's gotten this year here in this ballpark, and he's hoping to pick up win number 1 on the season. Seven and a third for Cain, a tip of the cap on his way off the field. Veteran left-hander Javier Lopez, sidewinder, comes into the game now for the Giants. A 4-0 lead. Runner at first, 1 out. Lopez, a guy who can pitch often. This is his 13th appearance of the season. You can see it covers a total of 6 1/3 because he is your prototypical left-handed specialist. And he is in to face a left-handed batter. And that's what he has done well over the course of his career. He's held lefties. This is a career number to just a .220 average. So Matt Cain's got to feel pretty good as the Giants go to the pen. He knows they've got a lot of quality arms down there. And Cain, this is probably the best performance, guys, we've seen or that he has had since opening day, which also came against the Dodgers. Didn't get a win in that game. Remember the Clayton Kershaw home run on opening day down at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, bookends as far as good outings, but the middle has not been very good. But the Giants hoping that he continues on this, what he did tonight.
I don't care how good you've been throughout your career. When you're pitching poorly, you lose confidence. And I think what Bruce Bochy did, getting him out on a positive note, even though he walked Matt Kemp right there to his last hitter he faced, still a positive outing and something he can take into his next start.
Andre Ethier, the batter. So Lopez in his career has held lefties to a .220 average. Ethier in his career has only hit .239 against left-handed pitchers. And has not done much at all against Lopez. This could be a one-batter appearance. The right-hander Contos is ready. And there are righties, a string of righties, due up for the Dodgers after Ethier.
That low arm angle with that sweeping breaking ball, you know, John, that's kind of tough to pick up and kind of tough to hit.
It's hard to pick up and it's hard to stay back on because, you know, when you, for some reason, a lefty to a lefty sidearmer, you think he's throwing harder than what he is, so you jump out at it, you get out in front. You just can't wait long enough.
1-2.
And you see there what Ethier did. He just, you know, you just speed yourself up so much and you pull off just that little bit that you can't reach it. Watch how quick Ethier gets out on this pitch. See, the pitch is coming. He's so far out in front of it and just flailing at it because you think it's going to be a lot harder than what it is. You don't trust the 84, 85 you see on the gun.
Then these left-handers can get the left-handed hitters in between, and then if they can dot that fastball low and away, they stand up there with the bat on their shoulder. They are overcommitted with the body, but the bat can't ever move, and you lock them up. So key pitch, the breaking ball, and then the fastball away.
Outside of a full count.
Just miss with it.
I heard an ooh and I heard a grunt from you two guys.
I knew what he was set up for. We just missed the execution, and John's like, oh, glad that was outside.
So's Andre.
Yep. There's no way he can pull a trigger on that. About 3 breaking balls in a row slowed him down, and then went fastball away and missed, then went back with another 80-mile-an-hour little cutter out there. Not quite a big slider or a curveball, just a little cut piece. Boy, those some interesting positions you get into to throw the ball from that angle.
That's a great look right there. And the man did his job. 1 batter, 1 strikeout. That's all for Lopez. Right-hander Contos in. Monday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live Mas. And in part by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. 8th inning in San Francisco. The Giants lead the Dodgers 4-0. Runner at first, 2 down. And Bruce Bochy's gone to his bullpen again. Right-hander George Contos is into the game to face the right-hand hitting A.J. Ellis. 7 1/3 for Matt Cain. 1 batter, 1 strikeout for Javier Lopez. And now Contos, who's been pitching better lately than the overall numbers would suggest, has not given up a run in his last 8 appearances. Tough on righties. So the matchups, the way they've been going this inning, guys, have really favored the Giants.
Can you imagine a game managed by the Orioles playing the Giants, the way those two masterminds use their bullpen?
That'd be great.
Oh, that'd be so much fun.
Yeah, Buck Showalter, the way he got use out of the bullpen last year and again this year. And Bruce Bochy, he's one of the best also.
And Bruce Bochy's got Jeremy Affeldt up for one reason. That's Adrian Gonzalez.
Yep. If he comes in to pinch hit. Pitch is high. The Giants bullpen, they're talented, but also the way that Bruce Bochy deploys those relievers. That's got a big hand in how solid these numbers are. They've been solid for a few years now. The closer, Sergio Romo. Perhaps in line, depending on what happens here, perhaps in line for some work in the ninth inning. Left-hander Jeremy Affeldt is up, as Crucky mentioned.
How'd you like to have that be your job for the day? Okay, you've got to get Adrian Gonzalez out at some point in this game.
If he hits, otherwise
If
you're
he
just going to
hits.
throw in the pen a little bit.
Yeah, you're going to get some side work in.
By the way, Baltimore will play San Francisco this year. The American League East is playing the National League West. They'll play a 3-game series here in August.
On Sunday?
Including a Sunday game. Are you petitioning for? Are you openly petitioning for us to do that game that weekend?
Hey, I don't make the decisions.
You got a say in it.
I do.
You've got some say. You got some power. You got some pull. The boss is in the truck.
Let's do
it. Talk right to the boss. He's in the truck.
Let's do it. Two good teams, two good managers.
That'd be fun.
Good access.
Liner into center field. A base hit for Ellis. Kemp to second with 2 down. We might want to come out early, watch the whole series, really just to get a feel for the managers.
That would be why we would come out early.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be to play golf. You don't play golf.
I don't play, so
He needs to play.
he plays golf.
Yeah, I'm going to take it back up.
I'll caddy for you.
No, we can't afford that.
How much you charge?
My daily rate, my normal daily rate.
Yeah, that's okay.
Dave Righetti to the mound. And more activity in the San Francisco bullpen right now. More MLB action that comes your way on ESPN beginning tomorrow night at 7 Eastern. It'll be the Atlanta Braves in Cincinnati to take on the Reds. And then Wednesday night at 7 Eastern, Joe Mauer and the Minnesota Twins are in Boston to take on Dustin Pedroia and the Red Sox. Both games also available live on Watch ESPN. All right, here we go. 2 relievers up now for the Giants, and Adrian Gonzalez is out in the on-deck circle. He will bat this inning if Juan Uribe can reach.
Well, Uribe's got to hit a 3-run homer to make this a 1-run game, right? I mean, isn't that normal?
Lays off ball 1.
You guys aren't biting with that 1-run game, are you?
That hitter Gene Machi has joined Jeremy Affeldt.
Earlier in the game, the wind was blowing out to right. Now it's blowing out to left. Uribe up there, you might get a 1-run game if you get one up in the wind.
Uribe, very aggressive hitter, although he has drawn 11 walks already this year.
What's going on? Pablo has 7 now?
Well, it gets around, they're swinging. Maybe they don't get the strikes. They're deciding to take a few of them.
That's no fun.
Can't go against the scouting report, can you?
Wouldn't think.
Three and 0.
There comes Jeremy Affeldt if Uribe gets on.
Matt Cain looking for his first win of the season. Needs some help from the bullpen. Bases loaded. Gonzalez will be announced. Contos will be replaced. Bochy will summon Affeldt. It's got all the makings. All of a sudden, the tying run is at the plate for the Dodgers here in the 8th inning. Back at arguably the most beautiful ballpark in the baseball, AT&T Park, the home of the Giants, who have a 4-0 lead on the Dodgers here in the 8th inning. And here is the situation. The bases are loaded with 2 outs. Left-hander Jeremy Affeldt is into the game to face Adrian Gonzalez. Affeldt pitching for the 3rd time in as many days here in this series. Gonzalez coming off the bench after being scratched yet again today with a sore neck. Bases loaded, 2 down, tying run at the plate. Gonzalez 5 for 20 in his career against Affeldt, and has done an outstanding job hitting in the clutch this season. First pitch swinging. It's going to find the hole and drive in a pair. 4-2, 1st and 3rd.
The Giants were playing Adrian Gonzalez to pull on the infield and to hit the other way in the outfield. And you could see how Scutaro was shifted so far around. This pitch here from Affeldt, a little cutter, kind of down the middle, and Adrian just hits it right back up the middle, being a pinch hitter off the bench, being really, really aggressive.
Well, you watch him take batting practice with his neck hurting. He couldn't really turn on balls. He's hitting everything up the middle and the other way. Right? He just took that swing in the game. Not many can do that.
Here's D. Gordon. So Gordon, another left-handed batter. If you're looking to the Dodger bench for right-handed hitters, Mark Ellis is not healthy enough to play. Jerry Hairston has a slight groin problem. He is out in the on-deck circle right now in the pitcher's spot.
They already used Schumacher.
Yeah.
Like you said, Ellis is out, and they already used Cruz.
They got Ramon Hernandez and Justin Sellers are the other 2. Chopper over the head of Affeldt, got to hurry, no play, and another run scores.
One-run game, got them right where they want them.
The speed never slumps. He just chopped that ball over the mound.
I remember, and Oral, you know this as well as anyone, when Robbie Thompson played second base, this is one of those where he would just run into the runner. Act like he's fielding the ball if he didn't think he had a chance. You watch right here, Scutaro, the ball gets over Affeldt's head, but Scutaro hesitates because Gonzalez is running past him. He slows up. That's one of those you just run in the baseline. You hope that he runs into you.
Another pitching change. Jerry Hairston announced into the game. Gonzalez will leave for a pinch runner. Justin Sellers in to run for him. And right-hander Gene Machi is going to come into the game to face Hairston. The Dodgers, with a couple of ground ball base hits, one of them an infield hit, all of a sudden have come to life, scoring 3 runs here in the 8th inning. And that win number 1 for Matt Cain doesn't look quite as comfortable right now, guys, as it did a few minutes ago.
No, but look at him. He's up there shaking the relief pitcher. Jerry Affeldt faced 2 guys.
Yep.
Gave up 2 hits. One, of course, an infield single. Gave up 3 RBIs. And Matt Cain's still in there, shaking his hand coming off the mound. That's 25 guys trying to win tonight.
And the Dodgers on the other side, Gonzalez comes up with stiff neck and comes through with the base hit up the middle, fist pumping over at first, and then all of a sudden D. Gordon, who just came up here because of the injury to Hanley Ramirez, who had a good night last night, he comes through with a little chopper, and the Dodgers are alive.
They've had a couple of tremendously deflating losses the last couple of games. Walk-off home runs in the 9th inning, Friday night in the 10th inning last night. They've lost 3 in a row. The Giants have won 5 in a row. 2 teams whose fortunes are going in different directions right now. But boy, what it would mean to Don Mattingly and the Dodgers to somehow find a way to win a ball game here in San Francisco.
It's not only the rivalry with the Giants, but it's just getting themselves back in the winning ways and knowing that they can come together as a team and do something as a unit, not feel like a bunch of individuals that are just kind of clawing away and getting no results.
Giants in first place right now, half game up on the Rockies, who lost to Tampa Bay today. Arizona sitting in 3rd, and then the Dodgers just trying to stay out of the basement, with San Diego a game behind them. And the Padres are playing good ball. They beat Arizona today. The Padres have won 8 of their last 11. And some rare smiles in the Dodger dugout, including the injured Hanley Ramirez, who, remember, suffered the thumb injury in the World Baseball Classic, came back, played 4 games, and then pulled a hamstring trying to go 1st to 3rd. And is back on the DL. And he was playing well over those 4 games. So they're trying to do it without Ramirez, without Greinke, without Billingsley, without Lilly. Here is Machi. Spent 13 years pitching in the minors and in Mexico. But he has made a name for himself. Has pitched well for the Giants. Pitched last night in an inning in the 3rd. Gave up 5 hits, but somehow only 1 run. Jerry Hairston, the batter. Toughest job in baseball, right? Pinch hitting. Late in the game, you've been sitting for 3 hours.
Yes, it is. And especially the way the bullpen's been used, because Hairston, you know, Adrian Gonzalez had a chance to prepare for who he was going to face, more than likely. You know, you knew Adrian Gonzalez, you know, when your star's on the bench, you kind of know who you're going to hit off of. It's either going to be Lopez or Affeld. So he can go up and watch tape of those 2 guys, how they pitched him in the past. Hairston had no idea who he was going to face, so he didn't have time to prepare for this at bat.
Inside corner, 1-2.
I was always told people when you go up the pinch hit, try to be aggressive. Especially in this situation, they don't want to walk him to get to Crawford righty on lefty. So, you know, Hairston's going up there, he's taking pitches, and I think you've got to be overly aggressive, like Gonzalez did and Gordon did. And Gordon has a pitch hitting, but he's still aggressive against a lefty.
Three runs in the inning for the Dodgers. The tying run at second, the go-ahead run at first with 2 down in the 8th inning and a 2-2 count on Hairston. Thing you can count on in this ballpark, it will be full and it will be noisy. You never come to this park and say, boy, is this crowd quiet. They are always into it, and especially when the Dodgers are in town.
Probably why we should come back when they play the Orioles.
Full count, and now the runners get a head start.
And this is a situation of Hairston going to hit a deep, a long single in the gap where one of the outfielders have to cut it off. With D. Gordon running from first, he could score on this play on a single by Hairston.
Should have mentioned Santiago Casilla would probably be pitching right now, but he went 2 innings in last night's game, got the win. Unavailable tonight, so Machi moving up in the pecking order to this kind of a spot. 3-2. Ground ball to short. In time, and the inning is over. The Dodgers get 3, but the Giants still lead going to the bottom of the 8th. Giants 4, Dodgers 3. The Giants winning in walk-off fashion Friday night and last night, trying to hang on right now. The Dodgers just got 3 in the 8th inning. Justin Sellers remains in the game at third base for the Dodgers after coming on as a pinch runner. Kenley Jansen is on the mound for LA. The hard-throwing right-hander, former catcher, who can bring it at about 96 and always puts up some big strikeout numbers. Although as big as 16 strikeouts in 15 innings is, that's actually well below his career numbers.
He had a good outing here on Friday against the Giants. 3 up, 3 down, only 9 pitches and all strikes.
Hunter Pence has had a big night. He's driven in all 4 Giants runs.
A guy like Hunter Pence with his bat speed, as hard as he swings, he can catch up to a bullet. You have to make some quality pitches. He's swinging a hot bat, and he's got a quick one.
Kenley Jansen last year struck out 99 batters in 65 innings.
Pretty good.
And even that was down from his 2011 numbers, when he struck out 96 in 53 2/3. But again, the velocity's a little bit down, the strikeouts a little bit down. For a guy who usually handles the 8th inning with the lead, the primary setup man for the Dodgers, coming in with them a run down here in the bottom of the 8th inning to face Pence, Peguero, and Quiros. Two and two. Meanwhile, in the Giants pen, their closer, Sergio Romo, does not throw that hard. High 80s fastball, a ton of sliders, especially to right-handed batters. And he will come on and work the 9th inning.
Looks nervous, doesn't he?
He's about as laid back a guy as you will ever meet. Swing and a miss. One down.
Kenley used to be a catcher, and he throws a natural cut fastball. This ball comes out of his hand. He kind of gets around it with his index finger and his middle finger. Makes it cut away from Pence.
Maybe that's why they moved him to pitcher. He's throwing that cutter to second.
That's the wrong side of the bag when you're throwing a runner out, huh?
You would think.
One down in the bottom of the 8th, and the batter is Peguero, 0 for 3.
That cutter again at 93. He does a good job hiding the ball also. When he throws the ball, dropping it out of his glove for a catcher. He's really got some pretty decent mechanics thrown over the top.
At the knees, 1-1. Giants trailed at times in each of the first 2 games of the series before rallying late and in dramatic fashion. They grabbed the lead in the first inning here tonight, have held it throughout. Yes, he did.
I'm trying to say it's not a good thing for the Giants to grab an early lead.
They're not used to playing this way. They're used to falling behind and then coming back. Can they hang on here after the Dodgers just got 3 in the 8th? They got up early last night. We're up 5-0 after 2, and then the Dodgers scored 7 in the 5th. And then the Giants came back late and won it. Extra innings, in fact. They win close games. They win extra inning games. They win last at bat games. They find a way. And a good grab. By a Dodger fan.
Look at that. Giants fan, Giants jersey, little high five.
That had to be a great catch.
Might be the top web gem of the year. We're getting that kind of reception down there.
Got it. 2 down. Well, we've talked about the walk-off home runs the Giants have hit this weekend. Friday night, it was Buster Posey with his first walk-off hit, and it was a homer. A 2-1 win for the Giants. And then last night, this game went extra innings. 10th inning, Guillermo Quiroz driving the ball to almost the identical spot out in the left field bleachers, and the Giants win again. Tonight's hitting star has been Hunter Pence on the left there, along with Posey. He's driven in all 4 runs. Will that be enough? Here's Quiroz 0 for 3. Looking ahead to the top of the 9th inning, it will be the top of the order for the Dodgers. Carl Crawford, Nick Punto, and Matt Kemp against Sergio Romo.
We got Crawford with speed, Punto with back control, and Kemp supposed to be the RBI guy.
Romo's ready. His fans are ready. On Cinco de Mayo, Romo of Mexican descent. Nice to see him get in the ball game with a chance to save it here tonight. He's an interesting guy too. He is fired up to have the job that he does. And he really stepped in beautifully last year when he became the closer. Right on through the end of the World Series.
All 3 games he's come out to catch the ceremonial first pitch too. And he doesn't just sit back there for 8 innings, do nothing like a closer. He's on the bench cheering. He's out participating in the pregame festivities, and then he'll take over in the 9th.
And Jansen strikes out the side. So we will go to the 9th. And it is time for Sergio Romo to enter the game for the Giants and try to preserve this 1-run lead. He will take his time and wait for his teammates to take the field defensively. A 1-run lead for the Giants. The top of the order due up for the Dodgers. We'll be back for the 9th. Sandoval. And others roll right near the top of the list.
I find it interesting. The guy warming up. Look at Buster Posey. Got taken out of first base from Brandon Belt for defensive replacement. A lot of guys would be up in the dugout with their shorts on and t-shirts. 25 guys, one common goal, win today. His job was to warm up pitcher between innings, and he stayed and did his job. Amazing.
Top of the order for the Dodgers, Carl Crawford 1 for 4. 0 for 1 in his career against Romo. Shows bunt, he takes ball 1.
Pablo Sandoval down to third is really pinched in close.
And Belt is playing in, but when Romo starts to come set, he backs up a little bit.
The pitch Romo is known best for is his slider. You can see the great numbers that he's got this year, including the strikeout to walk ratio. But the slider, more of a weapon for him against right-handed batters than it is left-handed batters. A lot more fastballs Oral against lefties.
Yeah, he'll throw that fastball right there. He did it at 89, sinks it away, but he'll also backdoor the slider once he gets ahead out to that outside corner. Also, the left-handed hitter gives up on it and he catches the outside corner.
There's a slider. 2-2.
Was trying to catch the outside corner, pulled it a little bit to the middle, but kept it down and had good sharp break.
Went back to it, but he missed inside a full count.
Here's the important pitch. What's he do, Earl? 3-2. His slider's his best pitch. The last thing you want to do is to walk Crawford, put the leadoff hitter on, a tying run on, especially a guy like Crawford who can run.
Throw the two-seamer away, or I think he can go ahead and throw the backdoor slider, whichever one feels best in his hands.
Deep center, but playable. 1 down.
Little 78-mile-an-hour slider on the outer half. Got Crawford off the end of the bat. He's throwing the fastball around 89. The sliders were down in the high 70s. The 10-mile-an-hour off. They can get the little fly ball. See the slide, get him right there off the end, and gets Crawford out in front just a little bit. You see that ball hit off the end. Take a side view. Crawford gets committed. Little weight shift. Just didn't square it up. He was on time. Just didn't square it up. Right off the end.
Now Nick Punto. Punto 0 for 4 tonight. Sports Center coming up next here on ESPN. It'll be Steve Levy and Chris Berman handling Sports Center tonight. Fly ball left field. Peguero to catch. Shot number 2.
Okay, that's 2.
And out away from a sweep, Matt Kemp. There's the last hope for the Dodgers. strike. He faced Miguel Cabrera and struck him out to win the World Series. Nothing scaring Sergio Romo out there on the mound.
A year ago, Matt Kemp had one of the best Aprils ever for a Dodger, was the savior and was having a monster year. This year, struggling to find RBIs. You know he wants to come through for these Dodgers. About to get swept by the Giants.
And the Giants sweep it. Three consecutive one-run wins over the LA Dodgers. Romo saves it. The Chevrolet player of the game tonight, Hunter Pence. He drove in all 4 runs for the Giants tonight, leading the Giants to a 4-3 win. And Matt Cain picks up his first win of the season. Romo gets the save. The Giants sweep the series, and they have won 6 in a row overall. The Dodgers have lost 4 in a row after this loss tonight. Major League Baseball continues on ESPN tomorrow at 7 Eastern. The Braves and the Reds. Sports Center is next with Chris Berman and Steve Levy. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Oral Hershiser, John Crockett, and Buster Olney, I'm Dan Shulman saying so long from San Francisco.